Welcome to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
Me, Rob. Oh, geez, Drew, we got such a big show. Let's get that show on the road.
We got a lot to go over, guys. We have a brand new Giant. We have a Giant that was a Giant, and wasn't a Giant, and was a Giant, and wasn't a Giant, and was a Giant, and wasn't a Giant.
It was big, a little, big, a little, big, a little, big, but a giant, little giant, big giant, little giant.
Then we have to go over, of course, the preview for week 2, guys. Because you know what the benefit of losing so badly is? That should be the worst. Like, we have nowhere to go but up. I say should be because it last year nothing to start the season, so it was good. But it should be better. It should be better. So let's get into the roster notes here, because that's the first thing I want to go over with you guys real quick, because there's a couple roster moves that got made today there. So we got a brand new Giant. And again, I said we got somebody re-signed again. So fullback / tight end Jacob Johnson again on the roster. I don't think I have to go over who he is again. I think we've done that like 5 different segments. So again,
maybe
fullback, last 5 year of Carbon Priscillo, played with him on the Raiders and in Patriots and all that stuff. So he's been on, off, on, off, on, off. So we'll see what happens, see if he's actually on still by game day. They also made a change to the practice squad there. Undrafted rookie free agent Marcellus Johnson from Eastern Michigan was dropped from the practice squad. They picked up inside offensive lineman Cade Mays, who was a 6th-round pick back in 22 out of Tennessee.
Tennessee.
I got that song in my head. There's somebody singing Tennessee. He's appeared in 27 games in 2 seasons there, seven starts in that time frame. He was fighting for a starting job actually in training camp, but lost out partially because he had a shoulder injury that caused him to miss the last 2 weeks of the preseason there. Now, they dropped him with a full-on regular just drop. It wasn't an injury designation or anything like that, so he should be fully healthy based on that. Plus, obviously, that was a couple weeks ago now as well. So he's been, spending a little time with the family and all, and now he's back to work. Don't think I really expect a huge amount out of him, but I think they just thought that he seems better than Johnson. So what I can't seem to fathom is why we keep signing so many goddamn Panthers. Like, is it just me, or is it just like Panther after Panther after Panther after Panther? Like, that
reminds me 3 years ago of Buffalo Bills and Ravens.
But I'm saying this is the roster that you want to take from the freaking Carolina Panthers, the one team that's probably worse than us. Like, I get it. Dan Morgan and Joe Shane are friends. We get good scouting probably from Dan Morgan. Dan probably calls him up and says, "We're cutting this guy. I wish I can keep him. I just don't have the spot for him. Just heads up if you want him." You know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably the conversations going on. Because, again, those guys go on family vacations together and all. They're that tight. But, dude, that's the last roster I want to keep taking people from.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't make the Panthers, the next stop is the UFL for you.
Pretty much.
Apparently it's the Giants.
Canada.
So, all right, let's get into the game, though, because that's the big thing we want to talk about here. And the question that is on everybody's mind this week is, can Daniel Jones rebound versus Washington? That is the $1 million question. Some may call it the $40 million question.
I was going to say.
With Daniel Jones here right now. And, it's one of those things that you got a team that he's had success against.
Say the least.
He's 5-1-1 against the Commanders in his career. So, if you're going to expect a comeback game, so to speak, for Daniel Jones, it's probably his best option is the Commanders. Because that's the one team in the NFC East that the Giants have had success against. It's probably why we don't hate them as much as we hate the Eagles and the Cowboys. It's the one team that we normally beat. And if you look at his stats in those 7 games, Daniel Jones is a 69.7 completion percentage, averages 216 yards per game, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
which is some of his best stats
Yes.
to his career.
Yes. And, we looked at it a game-by-game basis here because Daniel Jones often talked about how much better he plays against the Commanders than he does anybody else. Here's the crazy thing. If you really break down what he's done, it's not as good as stats as you think. So he had 5 of his touchdowns in one game. That's also the only game he had more than 250 yards passing. He had 352. That was back in 2019. So 352 yards and 5 touchdowns. So probably, I'm pretty sure, the best game of his entire career by far. He only had 2 of the 10 games. 2 of the 7 games with more than 225 yards. So it begs the question, is Daniel Jones a guy who's been dominating the Commanders, or have just the Giants as a team really done it, and Daniel Jones is kind of along for the ride?
A little column A, a little column B, because I mean, he does. He's
glad in my head.
He has control of the offense.
Picturing Daniel Jones now dancing around, going, "You never had a friend like me, like the genie."
You ain't never.
But yeah, no, it's listen, it's a valid thing though. When you're only averaging 216 yards per game in 7 games, and in one of those games you had 352, so like 1.5 times what you average. Guys, that means most games he's doing under 200 yards a game. That's not dominance.
But it's also his average.
But that's what I'm getting at, is does he really play that much better against the Commanders? Or is it that one game that's making his stats look that much better? That's what I feel like. And I feel like we've all kind of gotten into that because it's been drilled in our head. Oh, Daniel Jones plays his best against the Commanders because we're used to winning against the Commanders. That's what it boils down to. And winning cures all, and winning makes you ignore things. But if you look at the numbers, his performances haven't been that great. Just the Giants happen to win.
Well, yes. They happen to win, and they, winning for Daniel Jones could be an extra 50 yards and maybe half a touchdown. And that's a big deal when looking at his stats. Because, like, when we won in 2022, what was his average winning yards? What, 200? 195 yards when you won a game? Like, how many touchdowns? 1.6? 1.7 a game?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, it's just, I think part of what it is, and I said this previously to somebody, I feel like Daniel Jones has made us lower our bar for what's considered good from a quarterback, if that makes sense.
Well, it definitely does, because like half the DJ fans out there, or half the Giants fans, like, we forget about Eli. And listen, we're all roughing Eli when he first started.
Oh yeah,
and the guy's going to go down as a Hall of Fame quarterback.
He better.
Yeah,
he better. And while he was a Giant, I feel like he never got quite the respect he should from the fan base. But Daniel Jones should get respect as an individual, because I do think he tries. It sounds like a thing. Like I feel like I'm talking like a parrot right now. He tries hard, but it's like he does try hard. The effort's there, but he sucks, and we just have to say that. We just have to call it like it is and say he's a really good guy. If Kay Adams was my daughter, I'd be okay with him dating her. He's probably a really nice guy. He just strikes me as that. He's dealt with a lot of adversity and never lashed back out at anybody. but he's not a good quarterback. He has no right still being a starting quarterback in this league, in my opinion. And I have a lot of
I'm going to disagree because
anger.
there's a contract that has a lot of guaranteed.
But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You can still sit him on the bench and say, you know what? We gave you a ton of money. They did this to Kenny Galladay. Said, we gave you a lot of money, but you haven't lived up to it. We're getting somebody else in here to compete with you in camp.
At least he gave Kenny Galladay more than one game.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, but I don't know. I feel like it's just time to move on, guys. It's time.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But if we're gonna talk about like bad stats about it, like we have to play devil's advocate and we have to go both stats on him. Like, hey, listen, 2022.
No, I get it.
Like, wasn't a bad year. Like, he play good for us. Like last year, it was a terrible year. Injured, most of the time. And like, let's be real. Like, he's coming back off the ACL and injury. Like, he probably should be starting. Like, we probably should have brought in someone else to start this year if we thought he was the answer. And guess what? He's probably not the answer. We probably shouldn't have brought him back as the starter. And we probably should have moved on this year and just said, sorry, we made mistakes. Both ends. Let's just move on. We could also both do better.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of anger still at the fact that there's no competition brought in for him. And that's been my biggest issue. And that's but it's like now he gets a competition, so to speak, a team he can face that literally made Baker Mayfield look like an all-star, Pro Bowl level, all-pro kind of quarterback here. And that's where I'm kind of curious to see what happens here now, because you got a team that he should be good against, like he should be good against this team. Here's the numbers, guys. What Baker Mayfield did last week: 24 of 30, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a lot of touchdowns. That's a very high completion percentage. It's a good number of yards. I'm not going to say that's astronomical, but it's a good number of yards. Like that's if I did the math, I didn't do the math. I know I love to do the math, but that's probably like a 4,000, 4,500 kind of yard kind of season at that point. That's a really good start to a season. I wish DJ had half that. So, and Baker's not a great quarterback, guys. He's an average quarterback. I'm not saying he's crud. We take him in a heartbeat right now, obviously. Yeah. But he's not.
I knocked Baker last year.
He's not Allen.
I knocked Baker last year, but I would take him in a heartbeat right now.
Who wouldn't? If you wouldn't, go in the chat and say it, because I'd love to see if someone say that and hear why. I just feel like he's an average quarterback in this league, but he got made to look really, really good against the Commanders. So this is a chance for DJ to prove something here, And I don't expect a game like that from Jones. I don't think that's realistic to think after what debacle he had last week. I really don't. But what I do think is that you have a chance for him to have a better game, perhaps build up some confidence. And, part of me also gets a little scared, to be honest, at that. Like, if he plays okay, just okay, does that extend him by weeks now? Like, are we going to be stuck with him to the point where the season gets ruined? Because it's not over yet, guys. It's 1 weekend. Like, I know everybody wants to act like the sky's falling and we're done. The season's over. It's not done. We started 0-2, remember, in that first Eli Manning Super Bowl year.
Listen, if he comes out, he balls out against the Commanders, tanks against the Browns, which is probably going to happen. In week 4, who we playing again?
Cowboys.
which he has not played good against.
Never.
Ever.
I can't remember a single game he had good against the Cowboys ever.
He probably doesn't make out of September, and we're looking at a different quarterback.
Yeah.
Come October. I have to think.
I mean, not to bring up the bad subject again, guys, but here's what his numbers were last week: 22 of 42. First off, why the hell is he throwing the ball 42 times with those kind of numbers? You got to give a little help in the running back and all the running game at that point to get things going in the beginning because they just didn't run the ball game long, basically. 186 yards, 2 interceptions. Guys, that's a 4.4 yards per attempt average. That's bad.
Really bad.
Really, really bad. So that shows you two things: short passes, low completion percentage. This guy has to throw the ball down the field. And if I was in a position to give advice to Daniel Jones, and I doubt he watches the show, so I doubt I am. If I was, my advice would be throw the goddamn ball down the field. Let Malik Neighbors do what we drafted him to do.
Let him be the guy that scares everyone and thinking why we drafted him, and throw it to Slayton.
Well, we got to see if Slayton's playing still. We'll get to that part.
Throw it to high. Like, listen, like we got people that go down the field. Like, throw it to Robson. Like, if Neighbors is that much of a scary prospect, let him be that guy. We have people to run down the field. Like, Slayton could be down the field. We'll get to him, like you said. Robson can run down the field. We'll talk about him later too. We also have Hyatt. We'll also talk about him down.
We'll talk about him later.
Yeah, we'll also talk to him. But he's got options. He's got options. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to throw to Singletary 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah,
which is what he did last week. Or you have to throw to Robson at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, exactly.
The line of scrimmage. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, hey, throw for positive yards and let the yak actually work.
And I feel like at this point, if he's not going to go ahead and succeed against the Commanders in the first half, he looks bad. It's time to bench him. I already want to bench him, but I understand Dable saying, you know what? I this was our plan going into the season. We got to give him a chance. Like, one game is not enough. But if you look that bad last week and you bomb in the first half against a really bad passing defense, a team that just gave up a ton of touchdowns to Baker Mayfield of all people, it's time, guys. It's time to go. Like, it's time for, I don't know, Locke or DeVito, but one of those two got to go in at that point. It's time because, again, the season's going to start spiraling out of control at that point. And my biggest concern is I don't care what they say in front of the cameras, in front of the media about how the team's behind Daniel Jones and all that stuff. I'm telling you right now, if he looks like crap again and he stays in there, Dable's going to start losing that locker room. And if he loses that locker room, the season's definitely over. It's definitely.
I mean, we were worried about him losing the locker room last year, but he didn't.
He didn't
say that's not the possibility here, but I'm not going to say he's going to lose the locker room after 2 weeks. But I guess I'm a nicer guy than you, Drew. Like, you're saying after 2 weeks, I gave him. If he looks like this week 3, week 4, we're starting someone else new.
Here's my thing. It's not the time frame of why I'm saying it. The reason I'm saying it is because of what you saw in the interviews after the game last week. You had Kayvon Thibodeau refusing to answer questions. You had, Dexter Lawrence getting visibly upset. Some people
over being booed.
Some people took Malik Neighbors. Some of his comments is a negative thing. Like, eventually, that's what happens. Is that everybody else sees it and goes, "Why the hell is this guy still in this thing? We can't win with this guy." That's what happens. And I'm not suggesting the locker room's at that point yet. I'm not. But what I'm saying is they're going to get to that point really quickly. Because I'm telling you right now, there is talent on this roster. And I know I sound like a madman saying that because of how bad this team looked as a whole against the Vikings. There is talent on this roster. We had the best left tackle in all of football last week. We have the best nose tackle in the entire NFL. We finally have a right tackle that can get the other side of the line going. We have an explosive rookie wide receiver that I have a lot of faith in. We have a really good possession slot receiver that I still think could be a 100-catch guy at that point. Like, we have weapons, guys.
A lot.
But you can't win when the most important position on the field is the weakest in the NFL. And that's where we're at. You're going to lose the roster eventually. I mean, you're going to lose the locker room eventually. Yeah. And I don't know the timetable on that. That's something Dable has to feel out or know. That's not something we can look at and say, okay, well, he's going to lose the roster at this point because that's a deadline. Like, there's no hard set deadline.
No,
every group of
but
people
it is, and also in the same point, you say like now, like you could lose the locker room by next week. You could also lose the locker room next week by replacing EJ because the team has faith in him. So it is a fine line as a coach. Listen, I'm not. You give me that look, that's fine.
I'm giving you that look because there ain't enough Kool-Aid in the world to drink to have that kind of faith.
Not saying like there might be guys who said like they've been playing with DJ for a while now. Like, hey, he's our guy. He's our guy. Like, how many guys the past 2 years have come out and say DJ is a good guy? He's our guy.
Great guy. Listen, again, we said he's a great guy. It's not personal in any shape of the imagination.
No. But how many guys? Because DJ has a locker room. He does.
You ever work with a guy who's like a chill guy you can talk to? He's a decent person, but just sucks at his job.
Or that's a guy that, or he was pretty good at his job. Or he was pretty
okay
at his job, or he made sure the job got done. He's the guy that made sure the job got done. And everyone liked him rather behind him. But as soon as the job was getting slow to get done, like people, bosses got on his butt. Like some people get upset about that.
Yeah,
so there's a fine line. Like when you talk about losing the locker room, like it goes both ways. I just wanted to point that out. Like
I get it does. I just don't think that's an issue. I really don't. I think he's playing bad enough. The team they want to win.
You're not wrong. I'm just saying there's a fine line. Like week 4, like I said, might be too much. Week 2 might be too soon.
So, all righty, we got a couple comments on it too. So let's get into that there. So, Gamble Grove on Twitch says never should have thrown 1K on Giants ML against the Vikings SMH. Shake my head. See, I want to say, I want to say smack my head. I love saying that version of it instead. Let alone Malik Neighbors to score a touchdown for $250. Yeah, that's a lot of money to throw in a Giants game. That's definitely.
Don't do that this year.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of money. Deb says only if he gets a head transplant, as far as him getting better this week. John says Daniel is like, where's Saquon? What you let him go? And there's us telling people to hit that thumbs up button, guys. If you're on YouTube, it really does help us up there. Get this out to other people. John says, I think he hasn't been the same since the turf grabbed him. If he had scored, I think his belief in him would have skyrocketed. Yeah, I don't mean, obviously, any success breeds that, to be, makes you better at that point. I don't know. I feel like his confidence is definitely shot. Don't get me wrong. I think it takes more than one. I think it takes him having like a career game, like that game we talked about back in 19. I just don't think that's going to happen. John says, just have Lawrence Taylor meet Daniel Jones outside and say, if you don't start winning games, I'm going to get you after practice. Here's the problem: is Daniel Jones is definitely much faster than LT at this point in their lives.
Let's say. DJ wasn't a wet dream.
LT's in
his prime.
DJ's in his 20s. Yeah. I don't think that's where that's yeah. And then John tells, I told you we should have taken him when he was available, talking about Baker Mayfield there. Deb says, Daniel Jones is no Eli Manning. No, he is not.
No.
Pretty safe to say. She says, do you think Dable was outcoached by Flores? It seemed like Dable never adjusted to what Flores was doing. It's hard for me to say. And I've heard a lot of people complaining about Dable and his play calling strategy there against, the Vikings in that game. It's really hard for me to say because my problem is I look at the fact that he had the best offensive line play we've had in years. We have receivers that got the fourth best separation in the NFL. And I go, is this play calling? Guys were open. DJ just didn't throw him the ball. It's hard to say. And that's the problem is that when you have that position playing so horribly, it's really hard to judge anything. It really is. Yeah, I feel like you could have called the best plays in the world with that manager quarterback on Sunday. The way he was playing in that game, there was no chance.
I think you could say yes just because Dable defended DJ somewhat after the game.
Yeah, he has to.
He has to. Listen,
he played like crap. I hate him. He can't do that.
No, not at all. You want to talk about losing locker room? Boom.
That'll do it real quick.
Mic drop right away. No, but
boom, then walk out.
You're fired.
DJ sucked. Walk out. End press conference.
Yeah. But you're not gonna win. If DJ had that lineup 2 years ago when we went to the playoffs, we could have looked a lot better.
Yep.
Only guess what? Fast forward 2 years, this is what we got now. And did they will get outplayed? Oh, did he get out coached?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, you're right, Drew. I'm not sold on that.
It's like I said, I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he didn't. It's just to me, it seems like something that's very difficult to say either way, because when you
I will also say this. I will say this: the coach staff for the Vikings last year, Joshua Dobbs, looked pretty good.
Well, in all fairness, he didn't look horrible in Arizona either.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He didn't look good. He looked below average, but he didn't look DJ bad.
But did he look Sam Darnold good?
No.
Bad?
But Sam Darnold, I think, was a lack of pass rush. We'll get into some of that in a little bit here. But
yeah. I'm just saying, I can't blame Dable when I'm sitting there looking at offensive line played well, receivers got separation, and quarterback sucked. So was it the play calling? All the coaching,
the quarterback not able to execute the plays.
Yeah,
and that's what I feel like happened.
All the coaching problems we talked about over the past few years. Yeah. There was improvement.
There was a lot of improvement in those areas.
Yeah.
So, all right, and then John said, "I swear, Roberto, I didn't tell Drew all the bad stuff you said about him." Yes, you did, John, and Rob. I'll talk to you about that later. After the program.
He definitely did not. We would not be recording at that point.
All right. Next up, guys, let's talk about a guy who had no impact in the game, I felt like, last week at all. And everybody's so busy bashing DJ. And again, I get why, but no one's talking about it. So the question is, will Devin Singletary get things going this week? This was a guy who did not shy away from acknowledging the fact that he's replacing Saquon Barkley on the Giants. Took his old number, made mention of it multiple times publicly. There was no shying away from that whatsoever from him. And I'm not saying he needed to have a massive 3-touchdown game like Barkley did against the Packers. But guys, 10 carries, 37 yards. That's not a good start. That's really not a good start. And he's got to do better. So, I look back at what the Bucks did against the Commanders. So, rookie Bucky Irving, who's, of course, the third down back kind of style back there from Oregon, had 9 carries for 62 yards. It's a pretty damn good day. I'll take that. That doesn't take a genius to figure out that's like a 7-yard per carry average there. Rashad White, who's their main bell cow back, so to speak, had 15 carries for 31 yards. That's not good. That's really bad. So you look at those numbers there. And it's a couple of things you can look at, but you got to be careful at this point of the season, guys, of not overanalyzing 1 week and acting like that's going to be the normal. I feel like a lot of people fall into that trap because that's not necessarily the case. Could have been a bad week. Could have been a couple good plays. It's such a small sample size, it's hard to say. But based on the style of those two running backs and what they did against the Commanders, you could easily sit there and say the speedy outside back did better than the between the tackles guy. That would lead you to think that Tyrone Tracy Jr. might be that guy who has the big week. Or
maybe
Singletary just needs to go outside a little more. Not to say you give up in between the tackles. Like, you don't want to give that up. Like, that's still a big part of the game, obviously. But, obviously they're going to watch the film. They're going to watch it over and over and over again. They probably already have. Let's be honest here. Probably watched that Commanders Bucks game like 5 times on Sunday night alone. But that's what it shows. So, we got to get Singletary going, though. Like, he's a good back. He's not Barkley. I'm not trying to say he is a actually legit replacement for Barkley. Barkley's a better back. I know some of us are going to hate to hear that, but he is. It's a downgrade at the position. The hope was that you downgrade the starter, you bring in better backups, which is what, you're hoping at this point to get at a Tyrone Tracy Jr., plus having Eric Gray now for a second year. That is a better group, even if the starter is bad. Not should they bad, worse, I should say, than the prior year.
Right.
But 10 carries, 37 yards, guys. That's not going to get it done. That's not going to get it done.
I mean, also part of the problem, this goes back to what we were talking about before, was with DJ. He was also supposed to be able to throw the ball more down the field to more open receivers, which then would open up the run game in the back game. Look at the Bills. Look at where Shane, look where Dable came from, and look what they did with the talent over there, which became a playoff team. We're expecting better throwing down the field, a core running back, and if you can't throw the ball, how are you going to be able to run the ball? Yeah. That's the mindset. Yeah. Even with a committee.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the interesting parts because you look at, what happened last week for both teams. And the Commanders gave up a decent amount of yards. We didn't get enough yards. But it's like, you're talking about it like the pass setting up the run. And I feel like that's not the way it's supposed to be, though. Like, it's supposed to be the run sets up the pass, especially when you have a weak quarterback, which we do. Let's be honest.
Well, yes, that you're right. If you have a weak quarterback, that's what's supposed to happen. If you got a strong quarterback, it goes the other way. Well, guess what Buffalo had? Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's a strong quarterback.
Which is arguably the best quarterback right now in the league this year. To some people, even
top 5.
Should be top 2.
I don't know where I put him exactly. I had to actually think about that part, but he's definitely top 5 at least. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we got to get a running game going, and part of it is honestly, I feel like we kind of abandoned it to a certain degree. If you only had 10 rushes for your starting running back, you abandoned it.
Especially compared to last year, at this game, it's been 25.
Yeah, but I get it. We're trying to get back into the game, and you kind of abandon the run on some points when you do that. But again, you can't do that when you got DJ. And sometimes when you abandon the run, you go back to it all of a sudden, and it's much more effective because they're expecting pass.
Correct.
We're not going to win, guys. Well, 42 pass attempts by Daniel Jones, guys.
No, he was at his strongest with half that. 25 max. 26.
I would even
26 rushes.
I would say 30 rushes. Even I'm fine with. I'm just saying I don't think giving Daniel Jones 42 attempts to throw the ball, unless something dramatically happens different than last week, which hell, I'll be happy to see. I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
You're probably right.
All righty. We got another comment here from a new watcher here. The Main Card Podcast. What's up, guys? Says, new viewer, how worried should be about Kayvon considering that first game and him being a first-round pick? It depends, I guess, on what your expectations are of him. Kayvon, to me, has been a good player. Hasn't been a great player. I think the stat numbers are what kind of misleads a little last year because his success rate was astronomically high. What's interesting is going to be this week, though, for him specifically because of the fact that it felt like half his sacks for the year. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but it felt like he got half his sacks against the Commanders last year.
Listen, if he comes up with 14 sacks this year against the Commanders right now, like, can expect a great year, I guess.
I'm just saying, like, you have a really bad line because let's be honest, they did not look good against the Bucs. They have a really bad line, and Kayvon thrived against them last year. And oh yeah, guess what, guys? Their offensive line coach is Bobby Johnson. You guys remember him, the guy who just sucked as an offensive line coach for us the last 2 years and sucked as a Buffalo Bill offensive line coach before that. Somehow we got a job again. So yeah, Kayvon, I'm not worried about him yet. I think that, you look at edge rushers, sometimes they go on spurts. Sometimes they go through spurts where they look great, and then they kind of, I want to say take a couple games off, but the production dips. I mean, they should never dip where it's not even a single tackle in the game. That's for goddamn sure. But again, I'm not as down on him. The only guy I'm really down on this after that game was DJ.
Yeah,
especially because it's prolonged.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're talking about your edge positions because you got Burns now too. So they're going to be
anything really.
Yeah, they're going to be tempering each side. So there's going to be feast and famine, I think, on both sides, depending on what the team thinks they can run, who they can run better against, and they might try to run up the middle to dodge the two edge guys, or try to the quarterback to get rid of the ball before each of these edge guys gets there. But Garrett game also might have some good games as well with tackles. So you have to sit there and look at it. I mean, I go back to last week or a few days ago where I think it was the second play of the game where Thibodeau almost got there, and then Sexy Dex got the sack first.
Yeah. And sometimes that does happen. Sometimes
he's creating the pressure, and there's no pressure points for your edge.
And stat-wise, by the way, guys, the Commanders still also have Andrew Wiley. Remember him from last year with them, but also prior to that, the Chiefs. This guy's like a really easy to get around. He's like their Evan Neal, basically. I hate to say it that way, but guys, it's not a good offensive line. I mean, Tyler Biotish at center, even. Tyler Biotish is a good player. He's not a great player, and he was their big addition to that offensive line. It's like there's not a single guy in that offensive line that should be a guy we're afraid to have a rusher go against. They don't have an Andrew Thomas. I don't even know they don't even have a Jermaine Illuminor. This is the chance for that pass rush duo to earn some of those paychecks there, to earn some of the praise that they got all off season, as if we have one of the best pass rush duos in the league. If they don't do anything, that's when I'll start being concerned. Is probably after this week.
So Drew's saying if there's no 20 sacks this game,
yes, they have to be at 30 sacks this year. This game. I mean, and it's not the sacks we talked before. I want to see them in the backfield. I want to see them pressuring, even if it gets to a situation where, let's say, since they mentioned Kayvon, I'll use Kayvon. It's like even if it gets to a situation where Kayvon pushes him, like you mentioned, and Dexter Lawrence or Brian Burns gets the sack. I just want to see disruption. And I didn't see a whole lot of it, especially in the first half of that game against the Vikings. He was way too comfortable, Darnold was. Can't be that comfortable.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's get into our next topic here. And as we're talking about the quarterback play of Sam Darnold last week, we're moving on to the one we got this week here. So we got to talk about how to stop Jaden Daniels. And for those of y'all that have been watching the show for a while will know that Rob and I were pretty big fans of Jaden Daniels coming into this draft. The only concern we really had was his size, because He's a little skinny squeeze. I mean, you can even see him in the picture here. You look, if those watching the video, look at that's not like that feels like
He's a wee man.
that feels like one of those pictures you like resized.
Condensed. Yeah.
Yeah, like no, he's like really, really tiny to be a quarterback. And he didn't have the best game last week, guys. So against the Bucks, his first game, 17 of 24, 184 yards, and 2 sacks. So it's a 7.7 yards per completion average he had, guys. So he's not throwing the ball deep, that's for damn sure. He did, though, look good running. That's not saying much. He did look good running. 16 carries, 88 yards, had 2 touchdowns that way. So he had his first 2 NFL touchdowns. Doesn't have a passing one yet. But he had trouble getting the ball to wide receivers. And it's a combination of a couple of things. If you actually watch, because I watched the whole film. I had the benefit of having off work today, so I sat down and watched the whole Bucks and Commanders game. If you watch the film, a lot of what was going on, and the NFL, by the way, guys, put out a whole video of every pass attempt and every running play he had. So if you really want to study the film, you can just watch that segment. You'll see everything he did, at least as far as the bigger plays. But if you watch the whole thing, you'll see that he didn't look comfortable because the pass rush kept getting back in the backfield. A rookie quarterback really needs some time. They need extra time to process. The game speed is different from what it is in college. He didn't get that time. But he had trouble overall, even with some of his completions. The ball was a little bit off. Not as bad as DJ last week, but the ball was a little bit off. There was definitely some issues there. And he has security blankets, and that's what he was using all game long. His top 3 pass catchers were Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson Jr., and Zach Ertz. That's the 3 guys who caught the most balls last week. The wide receivers in that game combined for just 5 catches, 66 yards on the day.
Yeah, which is
bad.
Yeah, it's real bad, especially granted, week one as a rookie quarterback is never good, but you're legit dependent on like your short slants pretty much the whole game, and you're not dependent on your receivers. And like you got Scary Terry over there, like you need to make some advantages of Scary Terry.
But I think that's part of the problem you're into, because you mentioned Scary Terry. We're not going to talk too much in the wide receiver, so I'll mention it in this segment here.
Yeah,
he's the only one that got anymore, guys. Like, that's it. See, Rob left. That's upset. Rob was talking about that. But that's the only one they got left. Luke McCaffrey is their second best receiver. Their number 2 receiver right now. Okay. Luke McCaffrey. We talked about him. They drafted him in the 3rd round, Washington did, but way too early, in my opinion. I know a lot of people had a grade of like a 4th or 5th round pick for him there. Way, way, way too early. So, he doesn't necessarily have the offensive weapons fully to succeed. But his best skill he had against the Bucks was getting out of trouble. And when the pass rush got even close to him, he would just take off. The Giants need to find a way to take that option away. Because if you can make it where he has no place to go, no open running lane for him to go, and he has to throw the ball, and he doesn't have good weapons, and his throws were off that first week, that's the way to make sure you give the defense a chance for success there. We got to look at last week and go, could have been just the nerves. Maybe it was first NFL start. You can't assume that's what's going to happen again, guys. You can't. You look at most players at the quarterback level, their first game, they don't look good. Sometimes their first year or 2, they don't look good. Sometimes 6 years, right, DJ? But that's where we're at. So, you got to plan for him to be a dual threat quarterback. And the Giants can't assume he's going to look bad against them, because, hell, we made Sam Darnold, who was basically at this point in his career the epitome of a journeyman quarterback. Went from the Jets to the Panthers to the 49ers last year, now the Vikings. He's on his 4th team already. And they made him look really good. And a lot of that was the lack of the pass rush. We made him too comfortable. He was way too comfortable in that pocket. You got to make this guy uncomfortable. He's a rookie. When you make rookies uncomfortable, that's when they make mistakes. That's when that happens. And you go ahead and keep an eye on the low passing routes at that point, because that's where he's going to go when he gets in trouble. He proved that last week. Zach Ertz, as veteran as they come at tight end, a good security blanket for him. That was actually a very good signing by the Commanders, I thought. Austin Eckler, another guy is that kind of guy. When you have those guys available in the game, you have to be overly cautious and those guys be the ones get the ball. The only wide receiver you really have to worry about is Terry McLaurin. And he's a very good receiver. So it's not to say that he's crud, but there's just not much there behind him. So, it's this is one of those games that I feel like it's almost worth it to put a QB spy on him to make sure the running lanes are taken up as best you can. And it's also worth it to maybe double up on Terry McLaurin, have a safety help over there, give Deontay Banks a little help, because he's the one guy you're worried about, getting a deep ball at that point. And the rest of it, it's got to be guys watching those running backs and tight ends, because that's where the ball's going to go at a much higher rate than what it does in most offenses, because of what they have: a bad offensive line that can't protect for long and a poor receiver room.
Do you think the Giants could relate some of the coaches have?
Years ago, they should. Yeah.
A couple years ago.
We have a better offensive line at least last week, and we do have a good receiver room now. I feel like we just need to throw them the ball. The first step is the problem, not the last step.
So look at them 2 years ago.
Yeah, they're the 22 Giants. Yeah, without the winning, hopefully. But the pass rush is a big part of it. And look at what happened. I've talked about before briefly with Sam Darnold. So Sam Darnold against the Giants last week, guys, 19 to 24, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And those are really good numbers for him. But if you look at what he did in the second half, not nearly as much. The second half, he was 6 of 10 for 57 yards. And if you watch the game closely and look at what's going on during those plays where we were on defense, they got to him much more in the second half. And I mean they got to him like they hit him, got him, sacked him, whatever. No, but they were in the backfield to causing him to be less comfortable. And when you have a quarterback that's not that good and you can get him uncomfortable, you can get him moving around, he's going to look that much worse. That's what we have to do with Jaden Daniels. A young quarterback, he's not used to NFL speed, and he doesn't have great deep weapons.
Yeah, literally going to have to queen him, put him under pressure.
Yes. And I think the big thing is that we talked about his size in the beginning. Get him a few hits. He's going to feel it more than the average quarterback, guys. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's been small like this his whole life. It's not like it's all of a sudden a new problem. But it's a totally different thing, guys, when you're getting hit by a 300-pound guy. Yeah. Like, it's a totally different thing than the guys who are getting hit at college. He's only 210 pounds according to, his profile. I don't think he's 210 pounds, to be honest. He looks like every bit of 195. Like, he does not look it at all. It's just make him take the hits. If he gets the hits, he's going to start hearing footsteps. He's going to start playing worse. And that's the precedent for every single time we play against him. He's going to go back to those games because we're going to play him twice a year, at least the next couple of years, assuming he, plays somewhat decent, which we expect.
Listen, we got him for at least 6 times.
Yeah, you got to think that. So, go for it. Get him hit. Protect the one guy you have to worry about deep at that point. Give Banks a little help on Scary Terry, and just make sure that those running backs and tight ends get popped the second they get the ball.
Yeah,
because they're going to count on Yak. So, all right. Next topic. The next thing we got to figure to stopping. Got to figure out how to stop DC's rushers. Washington is not afraid of running the ball, guys. This is not a team that just throw. They love running the ball, and they have for years. This has been the team that's done that. Last week the Giants gave up 94 yards to Aaron Jones on just 14 carries. It's a 6.7 yards per carry average. That's not a good day.
No, I mean, not to toot our own horns as well. That's actually been better than what we've done in the past, but it's still not a good day. Like,
no, that's bad. Like there's no way to buts about it. Like if you average 6.7 yards per carry per average for the season, you're probably, one of the better running backs in the league. And I don't mean like top 10. I mean top 5, top 3. I mean, easily, if not top 1. I mean, that's a large average.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Aaron Jones is not Aaron Jones of Aaron Jones' past, if you will, but like he's
last week.
He's one of those running backs he's getting up there in years. So what's he, 29?
This point, 29, yeah.
But he's one of those receivers. Like he's been in the NFL for 7 years at this point. He was a 7-year veteran as Green Bay, went over to Minnesota.
Yep.
And he's played well for Green Bay, and he's catching running backs. So like now we're going against the DC running backs. So there's a few of them back there.
Their names you've heard of, guys. Brian Robinson Jr. is a guy we've been playing against the last couple of years there. Week 1 against the Bucs, he had 12 carries for 40 yards and 1 touchdown. Obviously, that's not a great yards per carry average. Doesn't take a genius to figure the math there. Austin Eckler had only 2 carries against the Bucs for 10 yards. Again, doesn't take a genius to figure out the yards per carry on that one. That one, if you don't know, you go back to school. School did not do you any good. The big runner really in that game was Jaden Daniels, 16 carries, 88 yards.
Really stiffer because he was running for his life.
He was running for his life, exactly. 16 carries out of your quarterback. That's a lot of carries, guys. But we want to talk more about the running backs themselves. I mean, Robinson's treated like a workhorse back, basically. Always has been since he's entered the NFL. But his production's never been amazing. But he's still been a steady 4 yards per carry average guy basically his whole career. So he's not the guy that you sit there and build your offense around. But he's the guy. Yeah. He's the perfect run out the clock, short yardage back kind of guy. Like that's what I feel like.
The Walmart version of Derrick Henry.
Oh, I wouldn't even go that far. I'm not as big a fan of his game personally, only because I feel like he's never going to have the big play, and big plays are what makes a difference in a game.
I mean,
Derrick Henry's going to have the occasional 25, 30-yard gain at that point. At least in his heyday, we'll see about this year now.
That's what I'm saying. Walmart.
I know. I'm just saying there's a big difference. He's not rolling back prices that much.
Timu?
I don't know which way you want to go as far as that, but I mean, in the end, he's an old-fashioned back, though. He just, keeps getting the rock for, steady short yardage. So you got Austin Eckler then. He's primarily like a third down back kind of guy and a receiver in the game. Over his last 3 years in the Chargers, that we average 196 carries a season. So time will tell if that's just simply the game plan that particular week, or if the Commanders plan on using him in that kind of role specifically this year, where they try to use him more as a receiver than as an actual running back. His first 2 seasons in the league, he averaged over 5 yards per carry. But since then, he's dropped and hasn't done that. He only was 3.5 yards per carry last year. He is 29, so perhaps, obviously, his best running days may be behind him. We talked about that with Aaron Jones, but, that's not a normal thing at 29 to keep still being as good as you were at 25 or 23 or, that's considered old for a running back there.
Speak for yourself, Drew.
That's it for running back. But he also last year had a high ankle sprain in week 1. So it caused him to miss 3 games. So perhaps that was part of the reason for his drop, because the injury can be a tricky one that kind of lingers throughout the season there. I think no matter which case is the honest one, as far as either him slowing down because of age or the injury being something that really affected him a lot last year, I think the injury had to at least affect him somewhat, because he also had his lowest catch percentage in his career. He also had his lowest receiving yards per game since 2018. So it was definitely a bad year for him compared to his previous years. This is a guy who still hit 1,000 yards total, by the way, last year, guys. It wasn't like he had a poop year. It's just not as good as the guy who's done 1,300 to 1,600 yards a season consistently for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, it's also the case of not just look at the player, look at the team overall, because they just all played like poop. They were coached like poop, and there was a lot of hopes of that team to play like, I guess, confetti cake, but they played like poop cake.
Poop cake. That sounds gross.
That was meant to sound gross.
I can use diaper cake.
Yeah. Smeared diaper cake.
So, like I said, we'll see what happens. Like I said, the biggest one that I'm concerned with as far as the runners, and he's not a running back, he's the quarterback, is Jaden Daniels. That's the wild card. We talked about the issues with him a moment ago. Suspect line, not the greatest wide receivers. Like, this is a guy who I expect to be under fire all season long. And I think this game especially should be, again, we have 2 pass rushers that are supposed to be like elite pass rushers, at least as a duo. He's already shown he's not afraid to run when things break down. This is one of those games, again, I said, I like to see a QB spy to kind of stop him. But I'm kind of curious to see what the Giants do overall against him, because we didn't face a mobile quarterback last week. And that's something the Giants have had issues with at times. So it's an interesting challenge, that aspect of it, because you don't see that all the time. But we're going to see it a couple times this year, obviously.
I mean, at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if you put your 2 edges just gun towards the quarterback. Because, like, let's be real, that's when Thibodeau's at his best, gunning towards the QB and not the runner, which is fine. Put the 2 edges straight up, and maybe okay, 3 of those. Yes.
Well, Karake's got to be the spy. We're going to have someone be a spy.
I was saying, like, you either put a spy or like, you might. It wasn't like I was about to say that or anything.
I ruin your whole.
Yeah, jerk.
I'm a jerk. Yeah. I'm just saying, we like using a money backer. It would make sense to do that with them as well. I mean, it's definitely. I feel like we got to put somebody on him specifically to keep an eye on him, because it's going to happen. Like, there's no doubt at some point with that bad of an offensive line that things are going to break down for them. And Dexter Lawrence is going to create havoc in the middle. He always does. And if these 2 other guys on the outside hold up their end of the bargain, there's going to be some hits. There's going to be some hits on them. So, like I said, it's going to be an interesting test, I think, overall for the Giants defense there, to see what happens there, Let's talk about the other side of the ball, though, again. Let's talk about the offense.
Ooh.
Can the Giants wide receivers take over? Can they be dominant against this Commanders defense that, quite frankly, again, looked like poop in the passing game last week, to put it nicely? So we don't get in trouble for cursing. Here's the numbers from the wide receivers, specifically with the Tampa Bay Bucks last week. Chris Godwin, 8 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Evans, 5 catches, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan, 1 catch, 32 yards, which was a TD. By the way, he could have had a second TD. He just had a really bad play in the game. And then Trey Palmer, who's the second-year guy, 1 catch, 19 yards. Guys, that's a 13 yards per reception average. It's not a lot of catches, but that's a ton of production from that volume there. So, nice. As a side note, by the way, the running back Rachaad White, we talked about him not running the ball very well, 6 catches, 75 yards. So the running back was definitely an issue for them as far as trying to stop the passes, which is interesting because White's not really a good pass-catching running back typically. So something to kind of keep an eye to see maybe a sudden Tracy or Singletary get involved with that game.
So Singletary could definitely do that.
Well, he could, but listen, Tyrone Tracy, again, former wide receiver in college. I expect him to do something there. But listen, Washington's corners aren't the best. They're not at all. Like, Benjamin St. Juste is their top one. Had a 61.4 PFF grade last week, allowing 6 receptions on 8 targets. And he's an okay corner. I'm not saying he's bad, but he is not a CB1, guys. He's your CB2-3. Like, that's where he should be. That's where he's a legit NFL corner. He is not a CB1, point blank. Neighbors should have a really good day against him, assuming somebody else can do their part and get on the ball. Emmanuel Forbes. We talked about him a lot last year when we played the Commanders. Had a really horrible rookie year, guys. Had a horrible rookie year. The guy also weighs 150 pounds soaking wet. I mean, he's like, he makes Jaden Daniels look fat, okay? That's how small he is, guys. I want to say, I don't have this in front of me. I want to say he's playing weight was 166. We'll see if I'm right. But he's a really tiny guy. Like, that's the guy that when you have a guy against him that is able to actually, be a little physical, then he's gonna have some issues with him. By the way, he's listed at 180, but if I remember correctly, when he was being drafted, it was under that. So I guess he's put a little bit of weight on.
Yeah, 166.
That's still light. That's still light.
Yeah.
That's still 20 pounds lighter than a lot of the corners this league, guys. That's still light. And he had a PFF grade, guys, last week, 33.5. Allowed 3 receptions on all 3 targets he had his way. So he's somebody that when he's on the field, Jones needs to target him. Needs to look his way. I can only hope that Neighbors gets him sometimes, because Neighbors will school him in a heartbeat, dude. They also have rookie Mike Sandristrel, who was the slot corner out of Michigan that they drafted this year. So he's a guy that the jury's still out. We don't have a lot of tape or a lot of knowledge on him yet, because one game, like I said, we talked about with Jaden Daniels. It's hard to judge a rookie based on one game. I don't want to go that route. So we'll have to see. He was a legit corner for Michigan, though. So, but rookies tend to struggle at that position. And Wan'Dale Robinson, while he's got 2 years in the league now, he's really played 1 year because of all the injuries. He's not overly experienced, but he's got more experience than their corner does. So therefore, he should have the upper hand. And he's a really good route runner.
Yes, I was about to say, he was, even as a freshman, especially against the Lions, he looked really good last year.
Yeah.
Before getting hurt.
Yeah. And I don't expect our receivers to take over the game, though. I really don't. Not unless Jones is benched. And that's just a lack of confidence in Jones, not a lack of confidence in these guys. Just being honest.
You said it, not me.
Huh?
I say you said it, not me.
You're thinking that means then, so it's okay. But I do expect a better performance than they had last week. Again, because it's who they're facing. It's a really bad secondary. Malik Neighbors, keep on last week, had 5 catches, 66 yards. I want to see more plays like he had that one play where he jumped up to get the ball, and Jones happened to have that one play he threw him the ball deep, and that was a decent play. Like, that was a chuck it, let him go get it, and he got it.
And double coverage, let's say.
Yeah. I want to see more of that, because I really think that's what Neighbors is going to be able to do that most receivers can't do in this league. And if you're not going to do that, you're wasting his talents. Point blank, you're wasting his talents.
In my mind, you're buying the wrong jersey with the wrong number on it.
That's you for buying the number 9 before you got the number 1, but it's like we're already wasting the prime of Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, these guys at this point. I don't want to be wasting more prime another guy there. Like, I want to throw him the damn ball. Like, Jones has got to get it done. Wan'Dale Robinson last week, 6 catches, 44 yards. I like the volume he got. I just want to see him get hit in stride better so he can get more yak opportunities there. Darius Slayton had 3 catches for 26 yards, and the rest didn't do much, guys. That was it.
Yeah.
How much is it on them? How much is it on the quarterback? Hyatt had the one drop. I mean, it's probably a combination.
Yeah. Let's just say it depends on the throw. It depends on what's going on. But Hyatt, that was on him. But, let's be real. I think at the end of the game, we had, 7? Or at least minimum of 6 drop catches. I want to say it was 7, possibly 8 drop catches.
It was.
But at the same token, there was probably 7 or 8 catches that were overthrown, underthrown, that where there's not.
They went, as I say, they went as drops because of the fact that they got close enough to the receiver to be calling that. But they weren't great passes either. It was a 50-50 blame in a lot of those. Yes, the receiver should have got it because it touched his hands. But at the same point, DJ should have thrown it better. And to that point, you need to throw Wan'Dale Robinson in stride so that way he doesn't end up with 6 catches and only 44 yards.
Yeah. A little bit over the shoulder love.
Yeah. Or just throw it to where he's going to be, not where he is. Because if you make him go back for it, he's going to stop the momentum he had going forward. And that's going to end it right there. So, like I said, hopefully it's a better week for the receivers at that point because we have a lot of talent in that room. I want to see them get a chance to actually use that talent. So, all right, let's get into the injury report, guys. It's week 2. Like, there's injuries now. We got to talk about them. And today, as we shoot this, it's Wednesday night. So for those who aren't watching it live, watch maybe the next day on audio or watch it on video later on YouTube. We do the segments. It's Wednesday night as we're recording this. Here's the injury report. Giants did not practice today. Nick McLeod with his knee. He's considered day-to-day. So you may see him, you may not. Linebacker Darius Muasau, who is a brand new one to the injury list. Knee injury. We're still not sure how it happened exactly, but he's also day-to-day. Gunnar Olszewski, we've talked about him. Groin injury. He's going to be out for several weeks. Like, I'm actually kind of a little shocked they didn't put him on some kind of injury list right now. The good news, Micah McFadden with the groin injury was a full participant in practice today. So hopefully he's a full go because, again, we talked about
Rochambeau for it.
It's a running game this is going to be. And he's good against the run. He's much better against the run than he is against the pass. And this is a game where he could potentially make a big impact because of that ability. Wide receiver Darius Slayton remains in concussion protocol. That's why we're talking about earlier there. He may play, he may not play. We don't know. It depends if he can pass the protocol there. He did warm up today with the team, but he did not participate in the actual practice itself per the rules. So we'll have to see kind of how things go and how they progress later on during the week. On the Commander side, Zach Ertz did not practice, but that was a rest day. You got Jazon Newton, who had a foot/rest day. So in other words, he has a foot injury, but they wanted to give him a rest. He could have practiced if he wanted to, basically what that means. Tyler Owens, their safety, has an ankle injury. Manuel Forbes Jr., we talked about him, the teeny tiny little corner there, thumb injury. Brian Robinson Jr., running back with a knee injury, and tackle Trent Scott with a knee injury, all full participants. So all those guys should be a go, but sometimes things do change at that point. So we got some injuries. Luckily, no massive names really. I mean, the biggest name, at least on our side, is Darius Slayton. We'll have to see what happens there. I mean, otherwise, you got a backup defensive back, a backup linebacker, and a punt returner that you already expected to be out.
Yes, pretty much.
This is a very casual injury list compared to what the Giants have had in the past there. So
it's only week 2. Give them time.
All right. So I love the optimism. Let's get into the predictions here for the game. So we're going to go ahead and give our full-on, picks here tomorrow's episode. So we'll have that for you guys then. But, we do want to talk about our thoughts on the game here because I hate to say it's a must-win for the Giants. I really do. Because, again, we talked about it. Teams have gone 0-2 before and got in the playoffs. The Giants did it back in 2007 and won a Super Bowl. It's not like it's impossible to do with good things after going that. I think it's safe.
It's improbable.
Improbable, yes. But I think it's more of a must-win for Daniel Jones than it is for the Giants.
100%.
I think this is that game that if he doesn't play well, bench. I really do think that.
It is the piggyback off that. It's also one of those games. Like, if he does not play well, he does not turn around. Every now and then, Daniel Jones got to throw the ball deep down the field. Turn around. but he comes like he doesn't play well. Like, he's done because he's going to play the Browns next week. It's not going to look pretty.
Good defense, though. Even though the Cowboys beat the crap out of them last week.
You're right, but the Browns started shaky somewhat. They went fluttering, if you will, last season. But they were still a top 3 defense last year.
They were.
So that's not
And again, 1 week doesn't make or break anything. Same with us. Yep. I know all the fans now are like, "Oh my God, this team's trash. It'll be horrible all year long." Let's see. It's 1 week, guys.
I'm just saying,
it may be trash. It may not.
He looks like trash. He's going to have to go play against, the Browns. He's going to have to go play against the Cowboys. It's a rough start of September. If he does not play well, this week, it might be his last opportunity to be a good-looking quarterback.
Guys, this is the easy stretch.
A decent-looking quarterback for the Giants. I should say good, decent.
This is the easy stretch of the first two games. We kept them talking about going 2-0 to start the season.
Yeah.
Like a team without a starting quarterback and then a second NFL game for a rookie quarterback. Like this was supposed to be an easy start.
Yeah.
And it hasn't.
He goes 0-4 and it's lights out for DJ in MetLife.
Yeah.
Unless he's coming to play us in some other game, not as a Giant.
Yeah, it's just crazy the way this whole thing has gone down. So I'm hoping for better play. I honestly think that it's 50-50 in my brain that DJ is starting and playing in this game by the end of it. I feel like that's 50-50 in my eyes.
It depends, because like we said, he's always in his career.
Yeah.
But he has always played better against the Commanders. Not great, but better, because like most of his wins also come from the Commanders.
It's so sad.
So, like, if you're not playing well against the Commanders, the team that you've beat up on your whole career, well, you're probably going to get benched because the Browns have got your number. The Cowboys definitely have your number. Yeah. We're looking at Tommy DeVito by October. Hey, kids, your Halloween costume. Go out, dress up as Andrew Luck. Guess what? Your starting quarterback dressed up for Halloween. Dress up like DJ. Oh, you know what? Go like this lasagna because, hey, happy Halloween. Here's a treat.
And this is, again, in Washington, guys. So this is not a home game for us. The Commanders are actually favored. I'm looking at here. I showed to see because that just came out today. This is SI Sportsbook is favoring them by 2.5 points going into the weekend. Here, 2.5 points. So I'm going to call it as a win for the Giants, though. I think they win because they typically beat the Commanders. That's not a false confidence. That's me looking at history, and those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Like I expect the Giants to win. Exactly. I expect it to be a close game because we're not going to blow anybody out right now the way the quarterback's playing. So I'm going to call it would be a 20-16 win for the Giants.
Ooh.
A lot of
I'm not going to go that. I'm not going to go that far yet because we're playing Sunday, and I didn't go into depth. But I do think it's going to be a Giants win. But we do need to go in depth on tomorrow night's football game.
We do
a little bit.
Yes, we will definitely. As we go in depth on every game tomorrow night there for you guys. So,
well, Thursday night football, you should give a little paddle.
You know what? We should, and you know what?
You were not prepared for it.
I didn't. Yeah, no. You know what? I didn't even do.
You need to do any of the homework. Well, it's okay, Drew, because you got the bills.
I did all the homework except for this. So you know what? I'm going to pay the bills, as you're alluding to. I'm going to pay the bills, and then you let us know what the line is real quick for that game when we get back. All right?
Perfect, and I'll lead it off.
Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty, Rob. What's the line we got for tomorrow?
All right, tomorrow you got the Buffalo Bills going into Miami to play them Dolphins. Dolphins are -2.5 in this game, and the over-under is at 49 even. Drew, I know that it came up quick on you, but how are you?
I'm writing it down as we're talking here, so don't you worry.
I'm just asking, how you feel about this game? I mean, you got Tua Tagovailoa looking decent. You got Tyreek Hill getting arrested last week, who still should have got arrested after the game for that 80-yard touchdown pass. My God.
That was
I'm sitting there in
a real
fantasy
good-
football.
Yeah.
Number 2 draft in fantasy football, Tyreek Hill. Just saying, guys out there. Didn't believe in CeeDee Lamb. I watched this guy get arrested. I went, oh, there goes my fantasy football leagues. Because twice I drafted him in the number 2 pick out of the 3 leagues I was in. 80-yard touchdown pass. Boom. Amazing. Still got what it takes. Crazy shakedown. You guys should check it out because, like,
That video is crazy, man. Those cops are insane, dude.
Most of those guys are getting in trouble, by the way.
I'm telling you right now, they'd be on the unemployment line. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, he shouldn't have sped. He should have cooperated better with the cops. But that's insane. They went that 0 to 60. Like, you want to talk about a speeding ticket? They went 0 to 60 in like no time flat at that point.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So who are you thinking in this one, Rob?
Oh, I was asking you. All right. Well, I'm
gonna let you go first.
I'm actually going to go to the Bills to win this game. I'm a Bills fan. I think Josh Allen's going to circle the wagon. Although I do think they want to circle around Tyreek Hill. Well, not the Bills, but I think mine wants to circle around Tyreek Hill to prove what they got to do. But if history proves what it's got to do, Miami does not play well against good teams. And the Bills, I know, Drew, you think they're grumbling on down slot, but they are a good team. They're probably the better team. I do think they'll win. I think that they'll win probably by 4, maybe 3. Like, you want to tease that up a little bit? Yeah, it's good. My personal belief. But I'm also going to go take the under in this game because I don't think it's going to be one of those massive shootouts. I think it's going to be one of those more defensive games in the under. You're probably looking closer to like a 20 to 24, maybe 21-24 kind of game, maybe a 17 to 24 game in the under. Boom.
All righty. So I'm looking at that, like what you said a minute ago. The Dolphins haven't played the last couple of years at least, played very well against better teams. The Bills, they can sometimes play a little down to their opponent as well. You saw what happened last week with Cardinals. So it's not like if the Dolphins don't play well, the Bills will kind of pull away and go crazy and go fast. But you got to look also at the fact that this is an AFC East rivalry here. This is a team that see each other twice a year. And both teams, you can say, had disappointing week ones. I mean, the Bills to let the Cardinals stay as close as they did was not good. The Dolphins to get that close to the Jaguars, not good. Again, history. History tells us that the Dolphins don't typically play well against good teams. And the Bills are a good team and have been for a few years now. So I'm going to say that the Bills win. And obviously, they're good as far as the spread. I'm going to go with the under on the points as well, because I do think the big thing is going to be that they're going to do what they got to do to keep this just in check, to probably be like kind of what you mentioned, like a mid-40s kind of in the scoring there at that point, but not quite hit that. I mean, let's be honest here. Vegas knows what we're talking about. They're always somewhat close to that over-under line. It's always within a couple points. So, yeah, I'm going to say Bills under.
So, all right, cool. When we hit the trifecta, guys, boom.
By the way, how are we doing in trifectas this week? Oh, yeah, that's right. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We give you guys the updated where Rob and I are at when we give all our picks there, because we only gave it without the Monday Night Football last time we did talk about picks because that was still going on. And one of us got a trifecta in that game. I'm not going to mention who. Let's got a couple more comments here. So, John said Parcells wouldn't hold back if QB play was bad. He'd say Phil needs to get his head out of his blank, or he will sit. Yeah, and Phil Simms got benched multiple times at the start of his career, guys. But Phil Simms also never looked this bad 6 years into his career.
Yeah,
and Deb agrees. Deb agrees. And listen, I think if you watch the way that Dable talked in the Hard Knocks and all. And granted, Hard Knocks, he knows the camera's there. You got to keep in mind some of it's subdued a little bit. I don't think he wanted Daniel Jones again. I really don't think so. When he talked about Daniel Jones, his voice was different than when he talked about some of these rookies, like Jaden Daniels that we're going to face this week. Those guys, like his face was different. His voice was different. He did not want him again, I don't think. That's my own opinion. Not that I heard anything from anybody particular on that. I'll tell you guys if I hear anything, but to me, that's an issue. Your head coach should have a faith in your quarterback, and I don't think he does.
I mean,
those guys, to be very frank.
I mean, that's for real. He hasn't had faith in him from the get-go. That's why he didn't extend the 5th-year option, which is why we're in the predicament we're in.
Well, we're in the predicament because they gave him the contract after that 4th year.
Yeah, because he didn't extend the 4th year.
History now tells us we should have tagged him. And if we lost Barkley then, we lost Barkley then. We shouldn't have given him a big contract. That was a mistake.
That's hindsight.
It is, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's not the worst, but I think fans hate the contract now, but the fact that we can get out next year, contract not that big an issue.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that from the get-go when we're pro DJ.
Yeah. Well,
that's what we saw. That's just say pro.
I was never overly pro DJ. I was just pro him because he's a Giant, and I said he's the best quarterback we have.
We also both agreed that he was the best option to be the leader of this team of what we had options with.
Exactly.
So
and I think that's part of the problem.
Given what we paid him, yes, we overpaid to an extent, but we knew what we had in him at the time. At least we thought. Granted, in hindsight, now it's hindsight, putting Gardner Minshew in there could have
been better.
Yeah, could have been better.
A lot of things could have been better, but it is what it is. I get it. I feel like a lot of Giants fans talk about this contract as if they were against it when it happened, and a lot of them were happy when it happened. So 100%. They thought it was too much money. A lot of people said that off the get-go. We all did, but nobody was that upset at the time. So we can't just play hindsight. And I'm sure somebody's in the comments, "Oh, I was against it from the get-go." Okay, I get it. Not everybody loved it from the get-go, but the majority of fans were okay with it. So let's not try to do revisionist history there. John says, Daniels got 2 rushing touchdowns, 88 yards, could have had 100 yards, almost 200 yards passing, and interception. It's almost 300 yards out of him combined, and he didn't hurt his team like Daniel Jones keeps doing after 6 years. The scary thing is that's a typical Daniel Jones game, actually. If you think about it, what he did, 180 yards passing, 80 yards rushing, that's a Daniel Jones game. So hopefully, was that
the stats that DJ played against Carolina?
That's what I'm saying. That's what he does.
Was that what he did against Commanders? First game they played?
All righty. Well, that's going to call it a night for us here. So we'll be back in tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to go over all of the games there for week 2. And guys, we're going to have a special guest with us there potentially here. So we had some scheduled. I'll never say for sure until they come on at that point because people's schedules and lives do change. So, but we are scheduled to have a special guest for you guys. And you know who that is?
Not my dog.
You'll find out tomorrow. So, all right, guys. So again, as always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, also Instagram. I did Instagram it again today. We're back up on it. You did. And I guess Rob's favorite too as well. My LinkedIn. He loves it. And of course, as always, we're available the next day on all the audio podcast platforms there. So that is, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, all the big ones there. So, like I said, this is a lot of spots here you can go see us. So if you haven't liked all of them yet, shame on you. No. But, go ahead and do me a favor, hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe, leave a review on things like Apple Podcasts, share to a friend, guys. Listen, we say all the time, we mean it. Rob and I suck at marketing. We do.
Drew definitely sucks at marketing.
We count on you guys.
terrible
So what
argument as well.
I was saying, we about to see you're good at it, like when you're just slacking off. So we count on all you guys. We appreciate everybody help that has. I know a lot of people have helped us along the way. We've got definitely some of our regulars, like John and Deb there in the comments and all today, and we appreciate you all as always. But again, we do count on you guys for that because we're not good at it. So if you can help us out a little, we'd appreciate it. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Oh, actually, we do have one more comment here. I almost missed there. So I wasn't okay with the DJ contract, $40 million for a less than mediocre quarterback. Not feeling it. Again, I think everybody pretty much said it was an overpaying at the time, but we thought it would kind of average out once the kind of contracts came out. And if DJ had not regressed and played his 2022 version, his contract would be about right. The problem is he has regressed. So, and he needs to go. And luckily we have an out.
If you're talking about paying quarterback $19 million 1 year, $40 million next year, you're talking about $24.5 million through his career, through the 2 years. And if he's mediocre, like he played,
we got to pay him another 19 next year, regardless if we cut him or not, too, as part of it.
Yeah.
So he's going to give him like $80 million for 2 years of play, and it worked good.
But if you play like 2022, if you play 2022, like guess that's the average quarterback what they make playing like that. So.
Like I said, it was a risk and a gamble that a lot of people like to have revisionist history. And I'm not saying you, man, when I say that, because I'm not trying to say the person who commented that you were saying that specifically. Yeah. Some people obviously were not okay with from the get-go. I just feel like the majority of fans were, and there's definitely some revisionist history going on here. Where I'd love to be the guy who took the screenshots and shared the receipts at that point, because I was there. I've caught some people that didn't like they're saying they didn't like the contract from the get-go, and they were saying not great things, but they were okay with it when it happened. So
I was definitely okay with it. I was not.
I said
I wasn't ecstatic, but I was okay with it.
Yeah,
I thought it was the right move overall.
We thought it was a lot of money. We thought of that same thing that but it is what it is. So, all right, guys, we'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Appreciate you guys for watching as always, and as always, Giant fans.
Go Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please subscribe.